Hey everyone, my name is Anne Fraun, and I'm so happy to see you here. I'm one of the founders and leaders of Swing Left Peninsula, and tonight I'm also joined by several of our other leaders, Laura, Richard, Judith, Bruce, and Francis, as well as our special guest, Tierney Chin from Arizona. Next slide. So this is what we will be talking about tonight. I'm not going to read through every bullet here, but I do want to say, first of all, please sign up for our next monthly meeting, which is September 17th. The sign up link is going in the chat right now. We meet every Tuesday, every month on the third Tuesday, and please share the link with friends who may want to get involved. Second, I want to just, on the subject of links, let you know that for most of the stuff on the slides today that are things you can sign up for, we will be posting the links in the chat. Sometimes there's just too many to post. So at any rate, even whether they're posted or not, you'll get a follow-up email in the next day or so, and it will have every relevant link for anything we talk about tonight. So you'll see some in the chat, but everything in the email. So also at the end of all of our monthly meetings, we have just a chat time. You're welcome after the program finishes near the end of the hour to stick around and just chat with our group of leaders. So stick around and we'd love to talk to you if you would like to. Next slide. Now on to Laura.
Hi, everyone. So this is our usual good news section, which this month seems kind of superfluous, right? Because, I mean, quite a month we've had, but I thought I would try to put some meat on the bones of this incredible, upswing that we're in. And so the first thing I want to talk about is social media. If you had asked me 2 months ago, what was the thing I was most worried about in the election, I would have told you the only thing I was worried about was TikTok. And I have a room full of people I said that to at a event I went to, so I can prove it. Because TikTok was a very MAGA-friendly place several months ago. The content ran 2-to-1 pro-Trump. TikTok is a young people's platform, mostly people under 40, a lot, even maybe mostly people under 30. And there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm for Biden. There was enthusiasm for democracy, but not a lot of people creating pro-Biden content to counter the pro-Trump content. Well, now, the week of August 1st to 7th, they measured that 82% of the top TikTok videos that mentioned Kamala Harris were positive. The vast majority of the top TikTok videos that mentioned Trump were negative. It's a complete flip-flop, and it's organic. It's just because young content creators are crazy about Kamala and they're posting a lot of content. It's hugely important. It's a sleeper thing that old people like myself don't pay a lot of attention to, but it's really important, especially for that young vote. Okay, then we have incredible spontaneous self-organizing, starting with maybe a sort of obvious identity and affinity and group who would identify with Kamala. Black Women for Kamala started this trend of having calls for Kamala. There was a Republicans for Kamala call that attracted 60,000 people. A day or two ago, there was a Trans Folks for Kamala call that attracted 1,000 people. There's going to be a Swifties for Kamala call in a week. Again, important because Swifties for Kamala is a young demographic, right? So the Kamala candidacy is bringing out that whole group of young voters that we really need to not only win, but win commandingly. Next slide, please. And I'm a data person. You can see that enthusiasm I'm describing in a qualitative way in the polling data. So what you're looking at on the left is a poll where people were asked how they felt about the ticket. So in June, they were asked, how enthusiastic are you about the Trump-Biden rematch? And then in August, they were asked, well, how enthusiastic are you about the Trump-Harris race? And if you look at the blue line, those are Democrats. And it jumped from 46 to 85%, 39 points, a massive enthusiasm jump. For independents, the purple line, it was a 19-point jump. So you can see that, quantitatively, it's a huge shift in the feelings about Democrats and independents towards this election. And that's all important. If you sort of think about, well, what does all of that mean for us? it translates into the fact that, we can't really rely on the legacy mainstream corporate media to treat us, to treat the moment fairly. But we don't have to, because Kamala Harris is really controlling her own communication, her own message, and we're doing it with her. So we and she have bypassed that legacy corporate media that helped end Biden's campaign, was incredibly, in my view, unfair to Biden, spent weeks talking about his cognitive decline. Biden leaves the race and there's boo about Trump's cognitive decline, right? So all of that stuff, Kamala's just sort of said, I'm doing my own thing. I'm not giving you interviews. You don't get to define me or what I'm doing. Okay, second point, we already had a strong ground game. We've talked about this in prior months. We had more money, we had more volunteers, we had more field offices, we had more everything, right? Well, now we have even more of more. Kamala Harris has raised $500 million in the last 4 weeks. It's an unprecedented number. And hundreds of thousands of people have signed up to volunteer. And because we already had that infrastructure in place, those volunteers are going to have somewhere to go and something to do. So there's an infrastructure ready to absorb them and turn those hours into votes. So what is Swing Left Peninsula all about? We don't often mention polls in this good news section. So I wanted to close by saying that good polls are really nice, but working hard is even better. And we now have I already thought we were going to win. The only thing I was worried about was TikTok. Now we have an opportunity to win even bigger. So we need to keep going as hard as we can. And this meeting is going to be all about that, ways you can get involved, things you can do, and so on. Next up.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Keynes. Every month we do a quick review of the swing states and districts that our Swing Left Peninsula chapter focuses on. Here you can see Swing Left's national targets as well as Swing Left Peninsula circled on the left. It's California, which we'll talk more about in just a moment, as well as our neighboring states, Nevada and Arizona, up and down the ballot. And over on the right, if you can see that little heart shape around North Carolina, because from time to time since 2020, we've partnered with colleagues in North Carolina because it's such a strategic place and there's so much good work we can do there as well. Next slide, please. So zooming in on California, California has 4 very tight races that are key to retaking the U.S. House of Representatives. And these are races that the ones we're focusing on are District 13 and District 22 in the Central Valley. And these are races that in 2022, they were lost by very small margins, and they're extremely flippable. And Swing Left Peninsula has put a lot of energy into these 2 districts and in partnership with other organizations as well. And the priority actions that have been really ramping up all year are campus voter registration, door knocking or canvassing, phone banking, and even some selected carefully curated fundraising opportunities that are, selected to make a difference and maximize precious dollars. Next slide. So we're going to get more details during the hour about how you can get involved. This slide is sort of the macro holistic view of the activities that we can connect you with and that we're doing all the time, starting at the beginning of the year and running up through the Get Out the Vote election season, which is literally just around the corner. It's really coming up to go time, and we're entering into high gear. And you can see that with the majority of the primaries behind us, or even 1 or 2 still, I think, perhaps underway at the moment, we're still canvassing, we're still writing letters, we're still doing phone banking, and we want you to get involved. We invite you to get involved, and there's great training that supports each of those activities, which you'll hear more about later on in the hour as well. So that's the overview. We appreciate your being here, and now I'm going to turn it over to Judith. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And I have the wonderful task of introducing Tierney, our speaker tonight. Tierney currently serves as the Arizona Senior Democracy Defense Manager at All Voting is Local. All Voting is Local is a multi-state, nonpartisan organization that fights against state and local voting policies that silence voters of color and other marginalized communities. It advocates for pro-voter policies that expand access to the ballot, not just in election years, but every year. Tierney served as the Deputy Education Director for Rural Arizona Engagement, Rural Arizona Action, and served as the Out-of-State Director for Mission for Arizona Coordinated Campaign. There, she mobilized thousands of out-of-state volunteers to take action in Arizona, helping to break the decades-long Republican trifecta and send an astronaut to Senate. And that's where I met her. I have to tell you, I was so impressed with Tierney as an organizer. She was dealing with so many moving parts, and she stayed on top of it all the time. Now, in her spare time, she serves as the co-lead for Swing Left Maricopa County. And Maricopa County is the fourth largest county in the United States. So it's a pretty big county. Tierney, please.
Well, thank you so much, Judith, and thank you for reading that bio. It's always odd when you hear your bio read back to you, but we couldn't have done the work here in Arizona, breaking that Republican trifecta, if it wasn't from our partners here, swing lefters all around the country. We even had international volunteers. So it really takes each and every one of us to make a difference. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. And feel free, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to put them in the chat, and I will be more than happy to answer them as we go throughout the presentation. And let me make sure my screen is being shared. There we go. All righty. Okay, perfect. So yes, I like to say, some folks in Arizona like to call it the great state of Maricopa, just because Maricopa County is one of the largest battleground states in the country. You see some of our swing lefters here, along with myself, at the Kamala Harris rally in Arizona, and it was a great time. And we are really excited to use this momentum to make sure we swing to the left so we don't fall to the right. And I did not trademark that, so you all can definitely use that. But we have, of course, presidential race, U.S. Senate race, House races, and state levels that are really, really going to be crucial to us here in Arizona. And we are fired up and ready to go. As Judith mentioned, Maricopa County is one of the largest battleground counties in the United States. It's the fourth largest. And it's so diverse and it's so different, which is why I enjoy working with folks from out of state, international volunteers, because Arizona is so diverse. But we do, and I'm sure that you've seen our Senate race with Ruben Gallego going up against Republican candidate Kari Lake. And we are fired up and ready to go because Ruben Gallego has done so many things for constituents across Arizona, leading fighting lower healthcare costs, prescription drug reform, dedicated to codifying the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and making sure like he fights for reproductive rights. So that is one of our top races in Arizona that we need to ensure we send Ruben Gallego to the Senate. Next up, in our first congressional district, Amish Shah won his primary, which we just held July 30th. And he's going up against Republican incumbent David Schweikert, who is bad news across the board. And so we are here to support Amish Shah and all Democratic candidates up and down the ticket here in Arizona. But this is one of the hot topic races to watch and to volunteer in. And then we also have Kirsten Engel, who is running in the 6th Congressional District against Juan Ciscomani. And so again, this is a top race and it's really crucial just because, as you all have seen and probably experiencing, the water issues. So having someone who is in office who cares about water issues, again, abortion in Arizona, is really a hot topic. And I'll mention that because we actually collected signatures to make sure that abortion is on the ballot in Arizona, which I'm really fired up about. But this is Kristen Engel. And then we have the chance to flip the legislature in Arizona. Right now, it is a Republican-led legislature. And when we go into talking about the ballot initiatives, this is an example of why it's so crucial that we ensure that we elect Democratic candidates across our legislative districts in Arizona. And so we have in LD4, Laura Tarrick, who actually will not be returning to the legislature. We have Christine Marsh and Brandy Reese, who we need to definitely get out and support. And those are some great, great candidates. Now, this is exciting news here because we just had our primary results, and actually the CD3 race is outdated because it was so close. Yasemin Ansari and Raquel Turan, who is our former Maricopa County Democratic Party chair, were running for the congressional seat to replace Ruben Gallego in his run for Senate. And this race was just separated by 43 votes. So what that means is that it had to go into an automatic recount. The judge of our Maricopa County Superior Court just released those results today. And Yasemin Ansari will be our next congressional candidate in this district by just 39 votes. So this goes to show, and this is what I tell people, it is super, super important that everyone gets out to vote. You make sure your friends and family are voting, your neighbors are voting. I stop and talk to people all the time about voting, but this was a really, really, really tight race. And I think this may be updated, but at the time when we put this slide together, in Arizona, there was a 27.23% turnout. So just around 30% turnout in the primary, which we know we are going to have to push people to get out the vote in November. Now, this next slide is one that I don't like to really talk about, but we have to. So also, even though we have some amazing candidates across Maricopa County and the state of Arizona running for office, we also have some really, really bad faith actors, some folks who are election deniers, MAGA right-wing extremists, and we are going to have to do everything we can to ensure that these folks don't get into office. And what we see is that they're going for our border supervisors, our county recorders, the folks who run our elections here in Arizona. So we know that that is going to be something that we need to stay on top of in order to move the needle forward. Now, thinking about in Arizona, we have a really interesting way. I like to call it direct democracy because citizens can actually work, collect enough signatures to put things that they want to see on the ballot in November. And folks across Arizona did just that. Our Abortion Access Initiative collected over 500,000 signatures to make sure that abortion is on the ballot this November. This was the most signatures turned in by a citizens initiative, I think, in Arizona's history. We also have the Make Elections Fair initiative, which will call for open primaries, one fair wage, which would increase the minimum wage to $18. And these are all pending legal challenges. I believe we're still waiting to hear back from the one fair wage and updates on that. But abortion and making elections fair will be on the ballot this November. Now, what's really important is because we have a Republican-led legislature, they were able to do so many ballot referrals that will harm folks in Arizona, in Maricopa County. And we need to make sure what we're working to do now as we knock doors, as we talk to voters, is making them aware of what is actually going to be on the ballot to make sure people are educated and informed about this November. And I'm going to stop right there because I want to open it up and see if there are any questions that folks have about what's going on in and around Arizona.
So while we're waiting for people to raise their hand, I have a couple questions for you.
Absolutely.
So one of the things we're hearing a lot, and that keeps me up at night, is all the trouble at the ballot box. And you had mentioned Republicans trying to get in positions to be able to control what happens at the ballot box. Could you tell me a little bit of what Arizona is planning to do to help defend the election?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one, I want to say elections in Arizona are safe and secure and convenient because most people vote by mail. They vote early. They are on the permanent early voting list. But what we see is there are so many grassroots organizations on the ground in Arizona making sure that voters in all communities know what these First, knowing what the county recorder does, knowing what the board of supervisors does, knowing what the election director, what they do, and how that work relates to elections and voting. So we have folks out monitoring board of supervisors meeting, providing public comment and testimony. You mentioned TikTok earlier. Someone mentioned TikTok earlier. Using social media as a way to reach everyday young folks, because these are people who will be voting for the first time, and young people are fired up. And just showing up. That is the most important thing, is making sure people just show up, ask questions. I was down when the legislature was in. I think I was down at the legislature in the gallery more than some of our elected officials. So I think that is something that I always tell people, is just show up. That is something that anybody can do. Make it convenient for you. Even being able to watch the board of supervisors meetings and those things online. Like, most people don't know that you could do that, or provide public comment virtually by emailing or writing in. Just making sure folks are informed.
Great, thank you. It sounds like a lot of people are interested in getting involved in Arizona. It's not too far from here. So Todd was wondering, how do people get involved to help AZ Dems?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back before we leave off the call today. I will put a link to our Mobilize, where we do have some canvassing things. I'll also put my email in the chat. This is my personal email and my cell phone number. We are knocking on doors in Arizona just about every day. We're making phone calls just about every day, because what I tell people is the election is now. We're not waiting until November to reach out to folks. And so there are plenty of virtual and in-person opportunities that are available.
When do the ballots drop, the mail-in ballots drop in Arizona?
Oh, actually, let me check my calendar, because they will be.
But that voting season's starting soon.
It is going to be starting very soon. And it's very interesting because we just had a recount announced today. So just like the timeline, it's very, things are moving quickly, and November will be here before we know it.
It's interesting. You had mentioned permanent early voting, but now it's active early voting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the idea behind that is that if folks aren't active voters, they will be removed from the roll.
And so are you reminding people to check their registration?
Every time I talk to somebody, I tell them to check their registration. I even I'm in so many Zoom meetings. I put it on my Zoom background So
Oh.
folks are reminded, you can go to www.arizona.vote, check your voter registration, get registered to vote, tell your friends and family about it, and just talk to people. And sometimes it's not about telling people who to vote for, it's hearing them out and seeing what issues matter to them the most, and then connecting the issues they care about with the people who are running for those offices who can deliver those changes and results. And that has made such a difference in Arizona. And for me personally, as I talk to voters here.
Yeah, it must make you feel good to have a Democratic governor and a Democrat in charge, Secretary of State, and ultimately in charge of the elections.
It makes a world of difference. If we did not elect our current Attorney General, Chris Mays, I don't know if her Republican opponent would have held those folks accountable for being fake electors. And so when you think about things like that, that really, really matters, is having folks willing to step up and advocate for those issues and hold folks accountable.
All right. Well, Tierney, thank you so much for coming and spending some of the evening with us. We know how important Arizona is, and thank you so much for coming and telling us even more about it.
And feel free to reach out anytime. There are some other folks from Swing Left chapters in California, across the country, who are reaching out to me so they can get involved and actually do some in-person work with us in Arizona.
Beautiful. Yay. We're going to be there in Arizona. Don't you worry.
Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be here with you all tonight.
All right. And now actually Anne is going to talk about some of the opportunities we have in Arizona.
Yep. All right. Well, things are going to start cooling off in Arizona soon, so it's time to heat up your Arizona trip planning, people. Tierney went over what's up for grabs in Arizona, so I don't really need to reiterate what's on the right side of this slide. But on the left side of the slide, you see that we have a ton of trips planned. I mean, these are either with our group or with our partner groups from other Bay Area entities. And the nice thing about maybe doing a trip with a Bay Area, if you're in the Bay Area, which I know a lot of you are, group, is that, there's some travel and lodging coordination that happens when a big group goes together. So as you can see, we have a lot of possible trip dates here. And I just want to point out that, the trip, the span of each trip listed there is usually about 5 or more dates. You don't have to go for the whole 5 days. You could pick a subset of those days, but that's just the range. I also want to point out that most of these trips, as you see, are going to Phoenix and Tucson. Well, all of them are going to Phoenix and Tucson so far. That is trying to dovetail with those 2 congressional seats that Tierney mentioned that are really hotly contested U.S. House seats. So I saw that Nancy asked about going to Flagstaff. So for Flagstaff, maybe just contact Tierney directly. And who knows, maybe Flagstaff will be added to one of our lists in the future. So I also want to just, I want to reiterate that the organizers of all of these trips will really try their best to help you with travel and lodging coordination. Some may even have the ability to put you up in free housing with local volunteers who are opening their homes. So the sign-up links for all of these dates will be in our follow-up email. It's just too many to post them all right now in the chat right now. That would be overwhelming to post 7 links. And that goes for a lot of the canvassing that we're going to share to different locations on this call today. So that's Arizona. And to answer Todd's question more than Tierney was able to before, we're going to talk about phone banking, letter writing, all kinds of things to Arizona as the call goes on. So this is the door knocking. All right, next slide. Okay. Reno, Nevada canvassing onto a different location. Probably most of you know what's up for grabs in Nevada, is Reno especially. We have 6 electoral votes, a must-hold Senate seat, and an abortion ballot measure. There are some House seats near Las Vegas that are up for grabs, but that won't be part of your Reno door knocking. So you see we have 4 sets of dates here. Those are with our partner Swing Left Santa Cruz. They're really running the show, and we're helping them staff volunteers to go on these weekend trips. Most people are driving up on Friday afternoon, knocking doors on Saturday, and there's a canvassing shift on Sunday morning too, and then driving back Sunday afternoon. So I think that's about it. You know, same thing. The organizers will do their best to do carpool and lodging coordination. This one does have a sign up link in the chat because it's only one link for all 4 dates. So you can just go to that link and then choose the dates you want to go. All right, next slide. And then we're going back to Judith for canvassing in the Central Valley.
Yes, so thank you, Anne. And canvassing in California District 13. District 13 is made up of San Joaquin County, Stanislaus County, and Merced County. We have canvasses throughout the district every weekend. We'll send you all the links to the canvassing events in our follow-up email, as Anne just mentioned. Now, if you're experienced, when you arrive at the staging site, you'll get your turf and you can go. If this is your first time, you will get a training. We are canvassing Democratic voters and Latinos 35 years and younger. Our goal is to identify supporters of Adam Gray, the candidate for Congress in this district. Adam Gray lost by only 560 votes 2 years ago. So he is really close to winning this time. And he is a really wonderful candidate who's dedicated to solving problems in his district. We also identify supporters for the person who's running for state assembly, and it depends on which county you're in, but we are asking people to support either Jessica Self, who's this wonderful lawyer, has been doing work on the city council for years, or Esmeralda Sorio. And you also get to talk about these 2 candidates. And don't worry, we always make sure you have talking points. And even if you don't know a whole lot about the candidates, it doesn't matter. What really matters is having conversations at the door. One thing that does help is you usually get to hear from at least 1 or 2 of the candidates before you start canvassing, so you can hear about their stance on the issues. Don't worry if you need a ride or you have questions. We have a concierge service, and somebody will get in touch with you at least 48 hours before the event, answer all your questions, and help you with carpooling. If you have never canvassed before in your life, first of all, I want to congratulate you for doing something new. And second of all, I want to let you know that we offer a 1-hour class at 7 p.m. every Tuesday, except this Tuesday because of the convention. It's all about what to expect when you go canvassing. It's called Yes, You Canvass, and it goes over soup to nuts, and it also helps you download our canvassing app. So next slide, please. Now, California District 22 runs from Bakersfield to Fresno, and it is made up of Kern County, Kings County, and Tulare County. Rudy Salas is the congressional candidate for this district. We currently have canvassing events every other weekend until September, and then we're going to begin weekly canvassing. These trips are 3 days long, kind of like the Reno trip. You drive down on Friday, but you can also go canvassing for 3 hours. Then we all get together for a wonderful dinner, and you start canvassing right away on Saturday, and you can canvass all day, take a break for dinner where we all get together again, and then canvass for 3 hours again on Sunday. Our concierge service assists you with getting housing, a hotel, any type of rides that you need. And we understand it can be pretty expensive. So you can apply for a $100 a day stipend, so a maximum of $200 a day to help ease the cost of gas and a hotel stay. We offer cooling cars and cooling towels that wrap around your neck that have been sitting in ice water, just like the farm workers use. And we have electrolyte drinks for you. I was just in Hanford a few days ago for the 3-day weekend, and I had a blast. The people who joined us canvassing were phenomenal, and it was really a great experience. We canvassed during the day and shared meals together at local restaurants. There were almost 30 of us, and get this, we knocked 2,000 doors. That's pretty amazing. Next slide, please. So I am pleased to report that we have now registered, as of yesterday, 1,700 new voters in 2024. And we have a robust voter registration program at college campuses in CD 22 and CD 13. We use the Field Team 6 method, where we meet up on campus, get clipboards filled with voter registration forms, wear Democratic-leaning t-shirts that create a magic force field to keep MAGAs away. After a short training on how to complete a voter registration form, we wander the campus for 3 to 4 hours, asking students if they care about climate change, women's reproductive rights, healthcare, or affordable housing. That begins the conversation. Once we start the conversation, we can register them to vote or update their voter registration. If nothing else, we can educate them about the candidates running in the district and let them know how to complete their ballot by mail. It can be pretty intimidating when you get that long ballot. Now, only 15% of newly registered voters actually vote, and we want to change that. So we have an opt-in form, and if somebody signs the opt-in form, they get reminders, texts in either English or Spanish as soon as the ballots drop. And then once again, about a week before November 5th, just in case they didn't vote yet, their ballot's still sitting on the kitchen table, we remind them to vote. So if you want to register voters in CD 22, we have a 3-day event going to 3 colleges, all within a 2-hour drive of each other. There are supportive housing stays available, or very inexpensive hotel stays. And as you know, you can't vote if you're not registered, although we do have same-day registration in California. So helping us register voters is terrific. If you can, this is how we win. And again, you'll be receiving all of these links in the email if you don't find them in chat. And now it's back to Anne with information about our fundraiser.
Right, we're moving into fundraising now, and to that little heart we had drawn around North Carolina, where we work strategically when it's possible for our group to do so. So we hope you'll join us for an exciting North Carolina fundraiser, which is this coming Monday, August 26th from 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific. We have 4 great speakers, including one of my heroes, Jessica Craven. She's the author of the daily activist email called Chop Wood, Carry Water. So that's really exciting for me. And you may be asking, why Mecklenburg County? Well, here's the deal. Mecklenburg County, which is the Charlotte metro area, has more Democrats than any county in North Carolina. But that county has had historically low turnout compared to any other county in the state. And this low turnout in the Charlotte area has cost Democrats tens of thousands of votes each cycle. That thankfully, in the last few years, an entire new Mecklenburg County Democratic Party leadership has come into play. And they are really changing things. They've recruited over 2,000 new local volunteers over the past year or so. And that was even before a crazy surge of volunteers came on board after the Harris Waltz ticket became a reality. So now what they need is more professional staff to manage those thousands of volunteers so they can knock on hundreds of thousands of doors in the county, which would be 20 times more doors than in 2022. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, but basically there's a lot of unleashed potential in this county, the biggest one in North Carolina, that could really turn this state blue from the presidential race down. So we're aiming to raise $75,000 for the Mecklenburg Dems. That will pay for 3 new professional organizers. Each one would cost $25,000 from now till November. So we really hope you can RSVP and donate, or with the links in the chat now. So that's our exciting North Carolina news today. Thanks, and on to Bruce.
Okay, thanks, Anne. And we have a second equally exciting fundraiser. And as you've already heard, we have a great opportunity to flip CD22, which is over there by Bakersfield. And right now, Republican holds it. The race is between Democrat Rudy Salas and the MAGA Republican Valadao. And it is one of the most contested races in the country. Both Democrats and Republicans are spending extensively on it, for it could determine the control of Congress. So we're co-hosting a September 5th event to raise money for 2 grassroots partisan organizations in CD22. There's 2 groups. One is the Dolores Huerta Action Fund. Second one is the Community Water Center Action Fund. And those groups turn out Democratic voters in CD22. And the great thing about them is they are in their communities year round, and they are trusted by voters, so they are highly effective. The event on the 5th features Dolores Huerta, and she's a co-founder of the United Farm Workers along with Cesar Chavez. She's an incredible lifelong activist. She still works hard to improve lives in her community through education and through political action. And I recommend you attend this online event to hear her stories and to learn about the current challenges in the Valley. And as usual, the links are in the chat. Thank you. And who's next? Laura.
Okay, so we talked about a lot of voter contact type things, including door knocking, phone calls, voter registration on campuses. I'm going to talk about another voter contact strategy called Vote Forward Letters. A lot of you probably already know what these are, but we have a lot of new signups, so I'm going to just give some detail. A Vote Forward letter is a get out the vote tool. And if you are a regular voter, you vote in every election, you're never going to get a Vote Forward letter. They only go to infrequent voters who are likely to vote for Democrats if they do vote. We write them all year, we store them, and we mail them in October to give people an additional nudge to get to the polls. The more contacts you have with people, the more likely that they go to the polls. So this is something that gets layered on top of everything else we do, or if you only get the letter, maybe that's enough to get you to the poll. It's a very quick thing to do. There's very little handwriting. The blue on the right, the light blue, is the handwritten portion. The rest is a pre-printed letter template that has election information and how to vote information, including QR codes that you can scan to go look up more info online. And we have a very large distribution program that I'm going to talk about next. Anne Fran, who's on this call, was one of our first, sorry, you can go to the next slide, was one of the first people to work on letters in Swing Left Peninsula. And she used to spend hours trying to explain to people how to open their own Vote Forward accounts and download the letters, and where was that file, what's that, see that little circle up on the right, and then it turned out they didn't have a printer. And anyway, Swing Left Peninsula learned that the way to really get people writing letters in quantity was to physically distribute the letters. So we have the largest program like this in the country. we've just added 4 new pickup locations. So you can pick up from us blank pre-printed letter templates where you write in like the blue writing I showed you on the last slide. And then you seal them and stamp them, and we remind you to mail them in October. So those 9 cities at the top, those are all places you can put in a letter order and pick it up from a porch near you at your convenience. We also have lots of letter parties in person where all the supplies are there. And then if you pick up letters from us, but you want to write with other people, or you have a question, you've never done it before, you can go to one of our Zoom parties and get your questions answered. We have a goal of 700,000 letters this cycle. The national goal is 10 million letters. We've actually, I think, gone over 400,000 since I made this slide, so we're well over halfway toward our goal. We're adding writers all the time. The other thing to remember is this is a tactic that goes through until about October 25th or so. And then after that, all you people who are writers, you can go do other kinds of get out the vote things. So this is a storable get out the vote tactic where we write all year and then we deploy them en masse. And once you've finished writing, you can go on and do other things, the types of things we talked about earlier in the call. So we have a letters website. The address is on here. You'll also see it in any of our emails that you get. And you can go there to do all the stuff I've described.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Demetrius, and I just need to know, do I send it to the post office? Can the post mailman do it? Or does it need to be delivered by the Democratic Party?
Oh, no, that's a good question, Demetrius. It's just a regular first class letter. So I don't have a copy in front of me, but the envelope is a hand addressed envelope, and you stick a first class stamp on it and you take it to the post office and they mail it just like any other letter. It's not identified as coming from the Democratic Party or anything like that.
Okay, and we need to move along. So please hold questions till the end and we'll stick around and answer questions and things. Okay, so there's really one-on-one conversations are really important, and we have 2 ways of doing those. One is through canvassing, which is the door-to-door knocking, and Judith brought us up to date on that. Thank you, Judith. The other is through phone banks, and we have phone banks running twice a week now. And at this stage, we use phone banks to identify supporters for Democrats. We ask people what issues are important to them. We feed that information back to the campaigns, and they help voters feel heard, which is very important as well. And at this time, we can also move persuadable voters over to our side, which of course is what we want to do. So our phone banks generally target CA 13, CA 22, the 2 districts you've heard about, as well as Nevada and Arizona. Details vary depending on the day. You can click the links to find out more details on those things. We're also a DNC hub, which means we make calls on behalf of the DNC, and right now those calls are to identify volunteers across the country. Those calls are very friendly, and any given day we go to wherever the DNC directs us with in terms of those calls. Just a little bit about the phone banks. We always start on time. First 15 minutes are spent updating everyone on where we'll be calling that day and providing information so that you can decide where you'd like to call, for example. And honestly, it also gives us time to get the breakout rooms set up behind the scenes because we're on Zoom. And then we split into the breakout rooms. Experienced people can get started calling right away. And there's training provided for newcomers as well as for anyone who'd like a refresher. So now these days we're getting about 20 new people every session. We always have one-on-one training available when someone needs that. We have great tech support, which honestly I help with. We're always looking for Spanish speakers. Your skills are invaluable. Sign-up link is in the chat, and of course it'll be in the follow-up email as well. And then I think I'm on the next slide as well. I was thinking, wow, the irony is this training applies to phone banks and canvassing, and I'm talking about it after we're talking about those other things. So we have 2 great training things coming up. And first, I'll tell you, I'm an engineer. I spent a lot of my adult life relying on stereotypical engineering communication skills, which meant I didn't understand why people didn't do what I wanted them to do in response to my logical reasoning. I figured all I had to do to win people over was to make a rational argument. Now I understand that no one, including me, makes decisions rationally. We're always guided by emotion. And so I started, well, one way I learned that was by attending swing left trainings beginning a few years ago. And now I've really shifted how I speak with people, both one-on-one and in groups. It's helped me, the training's helped me as a political activist and in other volunteer roles. We have 2 training sessions coming up. One focuses on how to listen to voters and respond in a way that helps them feel heard. The other introduces a messaging framework that pulls persuadable voters to our side and promotes our vision, not the opposition's. So one of them, the active listening one, active listening applies to phone banking and to canvassing. And it's actually a technique that's helped me look forward to my next conversations with voters, because now I really understand how to get to the topics that interest them. And I learn a lot from those conversations. And I also use the messaging framework. The second training is on this messaging framework, and it's very powerful. I use it quite often on social media. I use it in email and the newsletters that we send out, and I also use it in conversations. This framework counters whatever the opposition's current outrage is. And their outrage could be critical race theory, it could be transgendered people, it could be immigration, and now it's DEI. So the messaging framework helps us counter that, not only counter it, but bring people over to understand what's behind that and why the opposition tries to divide us that way. And so both of these trainings address important skills. So please sign up, attend, and bring a friend. And someone's on next. Francis, you're on.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, going to talk about why you might want to consider being a day one voter. And this is something that Simon Rosenberg has talked about for quite a long time, the benefits of voting early, specifically voting on day one. And just going to summarize, there's a wealth of material, but just going to summarize some of the key things. Campaigns actually track who has voted, and they update their Get Out the Vote targets daily. That means that if you vote on day one, you're not going to appear in their list, and they can move down the list and hit other people who are less likely to vote. And they'll hit more of those people, and the result will be an overall boost in overall turnout. Campaigns get, One of the unfortunate aspects is that Democrats actually have more irregular, sporadic voters than the GOP. So voting early actually benefits us more than it benefits the GOP. And in terms of what it does for me as an individual, once I voted, the campaigns are not going to, they're not going to call me, they're not going to knock on my door, they're not going to phone me, text me. I'm off their list because they've tracked that I've already voted. So that's something you can use to persuade your friends to vote early, preferably on day one. When you do vote early, share that with your network, put it on social media, post pictures of you with I voted badges. Just spread that word. What that does is it creates enthusiasm and social pressure for our friends and networks to also vote early. One of the things that I don't really want to talk about, but unfortunately it happens, is if we have weeks of orderly voting, it becomes harder for the GOP to do any credible claims that there's cheating going on. So that's a benefit of us getting as many votes in as early as possible. So with that in mind, fill out your sample votes as soon as you're ready. As soon as you receive those, they arrive between 5th and 9th of October in California. Everybody gets a ballot. And even better, why not bring your family, your friends together, your network together, throw a party, fill out the ballots, and get them in as soon as possible. This whole concept, Swing Left have put a project together to create material to promote voting on day one. That material is either videos or printable materials. The way we will be distributing that, there's a couple of ways. We've created a website called Vote on Day One, which I'm going to demonstrate very briefly and show you the video, show you a sample of the video, but also on Demcast. And Demcast is a site that's specifically designed to allow grassroots organizations to share their digital materials. The videos are in English and Spanish, and because every state has a different set of rules for voting early, different dates, different rules of who can, how they can, we actually have state-specific day one videos and also national day one videos. And we've got a wealth of material that can be printed out and used to promote day one voting. This is the home page for our Vote on Day One video. You can click on the red button, very quickly get to the share our day one videos. And then you can filter. But if you could click on the blue video, a day one vote is more than a vote, that will play.
When is your vote more than a vote? When it's a day one vote. When you vote early and talk about it, you'll encourage your friends and family to follow suit. And when they vote early and talk about it, they'll cause a chain reaction, sending Dem turnout through the roof. Spread the word with a single hashtag. It works. It's free. It's hashtag Day One Democracy.
That is one example of the videos that we have to share. There will also be state-specific ones, as I mentioned. Very simple for somebody to download them and upload to their social media, attach them to a text, get them out to their friends and family. And we hope that you will all do that for us and help amplify the whole message around why it's a great idea to be a day one voter. If you could go to the next slide, I think I'm going to just talk briefly about our SLP events calendar. So Swing Left Peninsula puts all of their events on a single place, so it's always easy for you to get at what's going on at any point in time. You can click on any event and RSVP for anything you're interested in or get more details. The link to the calendar will be put in it might already have been put into the chat, so you can get a hold of that. And we would encourage you to bookmark it and check it regularly. So any questions you have of when could I get some training on such and such, when could I participate in some phone banking, it's all out there on the events calendar. So this is the last slide of our presentation. Maybe if you go to the next one, I think there's a sum up, but I'd like to, on behalf of all of the Swing Left Peninsula team, thank you for attending. We hope we'll see you soon at one of these events on the calendar, maybe a canvassing session, phone banking, etc. If not, please feel free to sign up for next month's meeting. Let's all do as much as we can working together to make sure that we win for the Democrats, both all of the White House, the Senate, the House, more